The Black-Eyed Children of Scotland by Connor Alston, who was at Kilmarnock Academy when he wrote this story. My dad once told me a story, or what I thought was a story, about a couple staying in Stranraer on an empty street and about the terrible happenings that occurred that night. Jim and Carol, the couple in the story, lived in a house that stood on its lonesome. The streets were coated in snow. The house was the only source of heat for miles and miles. As they were on their way home, a storm rolled in and the wind picked up and the snow and hail began pelting the grin in the car. Jim was struggling to keep the car on the road, but it's too early to kill them off yet, seeing as there's a story to be told. When they got home, it looked like a storm was trying to force itself into the house, battering the very walls of the house. The bins swept by in an avalanche of snow. Broken rays of sunlight are occasionally blinding the couple after reflecting off the ice. As they entered the house, "Donald, where's your trousers?" started playing on the radio, while Jim swept up the snow off the driveway. Carol watched One of Us on the telly, and it went awfully quiet. Zap! Lightning struck and a shiver ran up Jim's spine as a sense of dread was oozing out his guts. But he went on and decided to call it an early night when he was finished. Crash! They woke up. Carol rolled over and nudged Jim and went, "Gonna go and check for that was, would you?" Jim, fine well kenning that he didn't want to mark Carol crap it, slouched down the stairs, peeked out the window and saw the bins on their sides. "Ah, it's just the bins," Jim roared. He slumped back onto the couch, body aching an hour, groaning with every twist and turn to adjust a cushion of him. Then, out of absolutely nowhere, Jim rose out his seat, trudged slowly over to the doorway and swaying from side to side. As he looked through the peephole, a bairn stood there, looking awfully peely-wally. Jim looked down and was thinking to himself, what the hell is a bairn doing out at 1 o'clock in the morning in clothes for the Dark Ages? He was also thoroughly drunk. So Jim opened the door, and as he did, an absolutely boffin smell filled the house. It smelt like cow manure and dried blood, filling Jim's nostrils. He was almost sick after just one whiff. Even Carol had to cover her nose to avoid that rank smell. Back to the bairn. It had black, emotionless, glassy, and quite frankly, piercing een. It felt as if a bairn was staring right through Jim. The bairn was also dressed in a pair of fancy sheen, torn shorts, an incredibly dirty white shirt, and a pair of galluses, all drenched from head to foot. The bairn began tilting his head from side to side and giggling. He put his horn up for a high five. Jim, sceptical of this whole thing, didn't do it. This bairn then punched Jim in the face, giggled, and ran away. Jim slammed the door shut and thought, this wee chancer's gonna get it if he comes back round, and then I'll be talking him to his father who can sort him out. The storm then picked up, hounding the house with every creak, followed by a crack, as if the house was fighting off a storm to stay standing. Jim went back up the stair and told Carol everything that happened. And she sighed. "Ah, your head's fully mince, Jim. You're just tired. Go back to bed." Jim couldn't sleep after that, though. And he was right. Another knock. This time. Multiple windows, and there was as well. The whole house was rattling with the noise. Jim and Carol both rocketed out their bed, crept down the stairs, and saw all these wee bairns poking their heads just into view in the bottom of the windows. They were chapping. They're all chapping. So the whole house is rattling. Jim opened the door. This time, the same bairn was drenched in a striking crimson liquid, which looked awful like blood, bricht and dripping all over this bairn. And the bairn whispered, "One of us." Jim slammed the door again. Carol ran for the phone. She lifted it. The power went out. The house started sweating as if it was worried about its own well-being. Jim decided that he would be a macho man. He went outside to try and scare the bairns away and get the power back on. Jim opened the door, took a few steps out the entryway, and saw the dog, dead and in pieces, hanging frae the gutter, tore limb frae limb, "We, one of us," written on the wall in the dog's blood. He dropped to his knees, greeting. A cold sweat began running down his forehead. A shiver ran through his body. His skin grew pale. His blood slowed. He felt trapped, like he'd been caged in his own mind. Stuck. A passenger to fit was happening. His head drooped, and he saw his own hurt on the floor at his knees. Carol, now alone and in the house, darted up the stair and grabbed her phone. She turned, left the room, slipped, fell forward. Her phone went fleeing out her hand. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps, smash. She followed it down. With every thump, mere dread ran through her body. She then picked it up. Sherds of screen, away covering the flare. She had to navigate this flare like a minefield. A low hum then began ringing out around the house. So Carol leapt for the cupboard, hiding there while the bairns filled the house and began wrecking the gaff. All the cracking began again, and the entire house started to shake, trying to tip the bairns out. Carol takes her chance and bellows, "Come and get me!" down the corridor, then around the house. Fist clenched, she sprinted for the door, determined to escape the house. They opened the door. She stumbled out and kept going. Her skin started going awful pale after she seen Jim's dead body lying in front of her with his hair on the ground. But she kept focus and acted before the withering situation could eat her alive. She was confident she wouldn't face the same fate as Jim. She got in the car, started it, and got out of there, greeting all the way to the police station. They went back to the house, where they found some of the bairns. The rest are still roaming the woods to this day, looking for lone families or couples, or anybody they can find. Carol bides in Killie with her new dog Brian, and a wee bungalow, still trying to get over the events of that night. It was a Saturday. Carol was awoke to the dog whining. The snarl was hounding as a terrible storm rolled all the walls round the house. And then Carol opened the door. This time the same bairn was holding Jim's head in his hands, all decomposed and falling apart. It smelled absolutely rank. Carol stood in disbelief, thinking she had escaped that night. She was frozen. By the time she could react, the bairn had stuck its hand right through her chest and was hiding her heart a hinner. As Carol felt the ground, the bairn whispered, "One of us." That was the last anybody heard for Carol, and the last known sighting of those devil bairns. Over the next week, it was reported that Carol hadn't left the house, so the police went and checked it out. They found Carol's body parts all spread about the house and on the sofa was written, "One of us," smeared all across the sofa in Carol's blood. That's the end of the story. I have to thank Connor for having this story online for me to find it. And I'm going to leave you all to it now. Have a good Christmas, Diwali, Hanukkah, whatever. Have a good festive season, whatever you're celebrating. And after that wee story, be careful who you answer the door to. And don't have nightmares.